I wanted to talk about this because when me and Esley made that video and I saw his picks for bad movies that we actually enjoy, he had mentioned a little movie in there called The Fanatic, which is that Fred Durst movie that features John Travolta, where John Travolta plays this guy who is obsessed with this one actor who does a lot of horror movies, and after failing to get his autograph after this thing happened, he basically goes on this stalking spree, and eventually the movie turns into like a male version of Misery, you know, that Kathy Bates movie where she's obsessed with that author and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It gets weird. And, you know, Esley said that, you know, John Travolta's character is on the spectrum. He basically, it's basically implied in that movie that he is autistic. And, you know, I appreciate Esley for the warning to my, you know, fan base and whatever, because I don't know how many of you even have it. I have it myself, so when I see movies like this, it always is one of those times where I definitely, like, really judge how they're portraying people who are on the spectrum. Like, most of the time, like, you know, you look at it as, you know, with me being autistic, I can point out things real easily and be like, okay, that's what you think it is, but really, it's not. That's just the stereotype that you're playing off. It's like when a comic book movie comes out, and the fans go to see it, and something doesn't follow the comics, and the fans are easily able to point it out, and it just, you know, sticks with them for a while, and they might not be offended by it, but it's just a change that's very weird to them, or it's just something else, this, that, and the other. And with this movie, I had seen it. It was a while back, but I had seen it because I was very interested as to what Fred Durst was going to do as a director, and John Travolta in this movie, too. He was coming off of a slew of just 0% movies. Like, he was really at a point in his career where he was just not doing anything that really anybody loved. And with this movie, I'm not, and I don't want you to think that I'm saying cancel Fred Durst, cancel John Travolta. That's not what I'm saying, because there were intentions here for Fred Durst, I guess, to make a point of, you know, people who are on the spectrum, who are autistic, and how they act and stuff. But then, when you get to the ending portion where it turns into Misery, it just becomes like, okay, so is your point that, you know, autistic people become so obsessed with one thing or someone that they become crazed maniacs? Like, in the end, it just didn't make sense. It just felt like he had all these ideas to pay homage to some movies that he loved, and he put them together, because I think he also kind of based a lot of it off that Robin Williams movie, 1 Hour Photo, about that old guy who, you know, stalks the family by taking the pictures and all that, which was one of the best Robin Williams roles, I think. I mean, he played that dramatic role perfectly when he was more known for comedic roles back then. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I think some things that Fred Durst wrote in there for John Travolta's character Moose was correct. I mean, the fact that he collects all this horror movie memorabilia and stuff like that, you know, he loves the genre, he loves the movies, so of course he's going to collect stuff. I mean, look behind me. I mean, I love comic book movies, I love music, so of course I'm going to collect what I can collect from it because it's just a passion of mine. I will say that I'm obsessed with it to a point where it's like, oh, if I see something new out and I like it, I'm going to try to go after it and whatnot, because, you know, John Travolta's character in this movie doesn't necessarily have, like, a well-paying job, so it's like, how can you afford this stuff? But when you're a fan like this and you're in that mindset, then you definitely always tend to find a way to get that stuff, because you're just, again, you're passionate about it. You want it, and you want to show your support for the things that you love. So I do like that. And the awkwardness is kind of there too, and the stuff that John Travolta says, because there's definitely times where, even on video, I'll find myself talking, and then when I'm trying to, like, say something, it comes out wrong, but in my mind, when I hear it first, it's correct, and then I go back and I'm like, wait a minute, why did I just say that? Like, it happens all the time. Like that one scene Esley pointed out, where John Travolta says, his character says, hold on, I gotta go take a poo. That is definitely something that I think someone on the spectrum would definitely say, because most people would just say, oh, hold on a second, we'll pick this conversation up, I gotta go to the bathroom. but he literally said out loud, "Hey, I gotta take a number 2, so I'll be right back. I'm gonna go blow up your toilet," because, you know, sometimes we know what we're going to say or trying to say, but then we say something different and it kind of makes it awkward. There's that. And another scene I think I liked in this movie was that there was a scene where this guy was picking on him, which a lot of this movie, when he gets picked on, it's like high school bully type thing, which is weird because they're all grown men, so it's just like, I don't know. I mean, the way they treat Moose in this movie, it's definitely like, I don't know how Fred Durst thinks autistic people get treated, but, you know, it's not like that. Sure, there's some people who are misunderstood and whatnot, but I don't think they treat the autistic people like that, like they don't care about them in any way. But yeah, no, anyway, there's a scene, guys picking on Moose, and Moose's anger, he just grabs his neck, and then, you know, obviously, again, I can relate to this, we're not necessarily good at comebacks or saying anything tough, so of course, with Moose being a horror movie fan, he says, "I hope Freddy Krueger comes and, you know, chops you up and this, that, and the other." It's not necessarily menacing, but I've realized this in my life ever since I've been diagnosed is, it's not that I have outbursts, it's just, when I get angry, I get, like, aggressively angry, and I thought playing football would definitely help that when I was in middle school and high school, and really it made it worse. I think by the time I was done football, and even over the past couple of years, I'll say, it's recently I've been able to figure out a way to kind of, you know, control it and make things better with that, and I'm very proud of myself for it. But, you know, there were times where I would just be like, you know, just like this, and then someone would say something or do something, or, you know, I'd tell them to stop, get on my nerves, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm just like, you know, you need to, like, I'd get ready to punch him, I'd grab him or something like that, and, you know, I think John Travolta played that very well, because there's some people who are like, well, it feels too cartoony and whatever, but when you look at it from the perspective of someone who has it, we're still awkward in those situations to where it definitely doesn't sound natural when other people hear it, so I do like that in a sense. But then, like I said, when we get toward the end of the movie, where he just basically breaks into the guy's house and does what Kathy Bates does in Misery, it's painting that picture like, oh, with autistic people, this is what you're going to get. They start out sweet, and then when they become obsessed with this thing, eventually it's going to lead to this. And I'm just like, even though that might not be the point you're trying to make, that's just what it seems to be coming off as, because that's basically how this movie started. All this guy wanted was an autograph from a celebrity that he was a fan of, and he couldn't get that autograph, and he's been, you know, spending this whole movie trying to stalk, which again, I've never stalked anybody. I've never, you know, gone that far. It just is what it is for me. You know, I follow what I'm able to follow, but I don't try to get into other celebrities or other people's personal life, because it's just none of my business if they don't want it out there. You know, it's not a big deal to me. There might be some people out there who do that, whether they're autistic or not, but, you know, when you're autistic as well, you tend to learn things later. Like, sometimes you don't really realize what you're doing is wrong because you think that it's not necessarily okay, but it's more of a normal thing to do. It's like when he ends up going to, I think the guy's name was like Hunter, when he ends up going to his house to basically ask him for an autograph. It's like, you don't do that. I support the celebrities and stuff like that say, look, I'm glad you're a fan and all, but don't come to my house. That is a personal place for someone to live where they're supposed to feel safe. And even if you mean no harm, coming to their house just kind of uninvited like that, it's a little creepy and messed up, and you can see why people get so bent out of shape when that happens, because, you know, it's just like, yo, you can't just come up on my property uninvited and expect me to give you an autograph. You know, it is what it is, and that would have been the time where instead of kind of berating Moose, Hunter could have said, you know what, I'll give you your autograph, but this is not the right thing to do. This can get you in serious trouble, so let's just not have this happen again, and you can get your autograph, and you can be on your way. But he also kind of just, like, berates him and threatens him and all this kind of stuff, which, you know, if someone comes on your property unwanted, then of course you're probably going to be like, oh, if you come on my property again, I'll beat your ass and shit like this. But, like, this was their first interaction, and sure, he may have not have known the intentions by Moose, but it just seemed like he was like, you know, like, oh my god, this guy, he's got this problem, and it's just, oh my god, it's so bad. And that was again a part of the movie where I was like, yeah, you know, I don't really know or like how he went and did this situation. And, you know, there isn't really a lot of movies out there where I would say they portray autistic people in a very, you know, good way either. I mean, that Sia movie was just, that was absolutely terrible with the way she represented people on the spectrum. And even Forrest Gump, don't get me wrong, I love the movie. I'm not going to sit here and bash it and whatever, because for its time, you can understand why I didn't fully understand autism and stuff like that, because it was made in the 90s where we weren't necessarily monitoring that stuff. So, of course, it was going to do some very stereotypical things, like the way Forrest Gump talks. Again, I'm autistic, and I don't talk like Forrest Gump does. I mean, you know, there's certain levels of autism, and I'm like on the lower spectrum, but still it's like, you know, that just makes him seem more like he's just dumb and mentally challenged than he is just autistic, which autistic, you can be mentally challenged, but like I said, that's more of the higher spectrum, the higher we get on it. So, I mean, again, maybe that was their intentions, I don't know, but the way Forrest Gump went about things and did things, I think was definitely well represented, and probably one of the more well represented when it came to autistic people in a movie in general. But this movie, you know, I wasn't offended by it. I was just kind of more like, what's the point you're trying to get across here with this autistic character? Because it just seems like you're making him out to be this monster in the end who's just really, really obsessed. That doesn't really have anything to do with autism. That just has a lot to do with, you know, he ends up getting upset and getting angry because the person he wanted an autograph from is basically turning him down, treating him like shit, and now he just wants revenge. And that's not really an autistic thing. That's just more of a, you know, person who becomes, like I said, jealous and upset, and just they feel ripped off, and then that's what you think. That's basically what an insane person would think. And there's a difference between being autistic and being insane. They're, again, two completely different things that, you know, completely just, you know, don't match up at all. So, yeah, Esley, I thank you for the warning and whatnot, and I actually am glad that you brought that up about the movie in this case, because you even said that you grew up, your sister, who, you know, you had to take care of and all that, and I can appreciate that you were so open with that. And I think, you know, I've been open occasionally about me being autistic, but I don't really let it define me that much, because in the end, I know how people can get and how stereotypical people can get, especially online, when it comes to autism and all this kind of stuff. They think that we can't go out in society and do things on our own and this, that, and the other. They just think we're basically stupid. And that's not the case. That's why I think school for me was also hard, because I didn't really have any teachers that really understood. I had one. He was my football coach and my math teacher, and he was a little bit younger than a lot of the teachers, plus his brother was on the spectrum as well, his younger brother. So, you know, he dealt with it in his life, and he knew the stuff that I go through with it, so he was able to teach me a little bit better than others, because he didn't look down on me like I'm someone who's stupid and can't learn the stuff. He knew that I was a slow learner who just, you know, had different techniques of learning things, this, that, and the other, and doing things as well, and he just kind of helped me get through that. And that's why I loved going to his class all the time, because I knew if I was having trouble, I was going to get the help that I needed, and I was not going to look down like, you know, we've gone over this a bunch of times, just look it up yourself. You know, it just, every time a teacher said that, it was like, well, some people just can't really learn that fast. Sometimes you gotta take your time with them, and you gotta, you know, run things with them, and maybe say it in a way they understand. And that's just, it's where I'm at, and I'm still forever grateful that he was able to understand that and get me through. So, you know, and I think once I graduated from high school and went into college, I just started kind of being like, you know, I still want help from teachers, but I gotta start doing things on my own and all that. And that's basically how I started learning how to handle my, I don't even want to call it a disability, because I don't really think it's a disability. I just think, you know, it's just a different trait for me, and sometimes you got to learn to either go with that trait or find ways to just improve it. And I think I've done that over the years. But with these movies, it just sets us back so much further back, I should say, where it just makes us out to be these just stupid and uneducated people who can't live on their own, can't do much, and become so obsessed with something that they become this murderous kidnapper who's just like, I don't know. I really don't know. I think if you're going to make a movie like this, especially if you're not someone on the spectrum who understands it more, then you need to do your research and you need to talk to people who are themselves on the spectrum and have dealt with it their whole life, or have dealt with having someone in their life be on the spectrum. It would seem to make more sense than just kind of go in there with a blind eye and just do what you think autistic people do and autistic people say, because most likely you're going to be wrong, you're going to be very stereotypical, and at some point in times you're going to be real offensive. I don't get offended a lot, but there are some movies where they have these autistic characters where they just have them say or do something, and I'm just like, is this what you think we are? Do you really think that we're this low, that we're this dumb, that this is how we act all the time? Like, I don't know. I really don't know at that point, but yeah, again, I'm not saying go cancel Fred Durst or John Travolta. Look, Fred Durst meant well, and John Travolta really tried to play it up very well. It's just that he wasn't given much to go off of, so it kind of came out as terrible. So, you know, I commend Fred and John for trying to do this, but it did come off entirely wrong. Like, if you were to just make this about a guy who, you know, wasn't autistic, or just like I said, just a dude, you know, just a guy. There wasn't anything implied about him, who just wanted an autograph, didn't get it, and when he went to go to the person's house to get the autograph, they were like, no, berated him and this, that, and the other. He became angry and decided, oh, now I'm going to torture and kill this dude. Sure, fine, but the fact that you were like, okay, we're going to do this take on autism, but toward the end we're going to turn it into like this horror movie, like Misery and all this kind of stuff, and make the autistic people look like that they're these just like obsessed stalkers and killers, and it's just like, okay, now you lost me. Now you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. It just seems like you wanted to pay homage to multiple movies that you enjoy, that you decided to cram them all in together while also implementing this message that just kind of gets lost in translation throughout the whole entire movie. Like, I don't know. Sometimes when you have the best intentions, they don't always come out well because you don't fully necessarily 100% know what you're talking about. So, and I don't know, maybe Fred Durst is on the spectrum himself. I can't clarify that, so who knows? Maybe I'm talking about this and maybe he's on the spectrum and was like, you know, I really want to get this out there, but, you know, as far as we know, he's not, and he just kind of made this film and thought he was doing good for the people on the spectrum, but he really wasn't. That's basically all I have to say about this situation. You can tell me in the comments below, what did you think, or what do you think, not even what did you think, just what do you think overall when it comes to autistic representation in movies and all this stuff. It's not necessarily the fact that I think that it should be autistic people playing those roles and just specifically them, but I think overall, if you're going to tackle this subject and make a movie about it, then you need to do your research, you need to dig deep. That way you make sure you're interpreting it in the right way and not have it come off as something else and just kind of seems like you're making a mockery of autism in itself. So, yeah, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and until then I will catch you all in the next one.